All right, so you want to talk about curses, huh? Well, get ready for a deep dive, because we're cracking open Breaking Curses Deliverance Manual by Moody today.
Sounds like someone's request is about to take us down a very interesting path.
It definitely will. This manual is, well, let's just say it's a fascinating read.
It is, and it's interesting how curses, as a concept, they appear in so many different cultures across history and all. But what we're going to look at here is how Moody approaches it, specifically through this biblical lens.
Yeah, and he dives right in, like there's no messing around. He defines a curse as uttering a wish of evil against one, or, get this, invoking harm.
Strong stuff.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder, where did these biblical curses even come from? Well, Moody, he's got these four main sources, right?
And it's important to remember, he's careful to say that biblical curses are different from other kinds of curses, like you might find in different traditions. He ties it back to, like, breaking those divine laws, the kind of stuff you see in Deuteronomy.
Right, so we've got those curses directly from God, which it's not like they're random punishments or anything. It's like they're tied to very specific actions, right?
Exactly. It's all laid out, cross this line, this is what happens. But then it gets even more, I don't know, more intense maybe when he gets to those ancestral curses.
Oh, you mean like the idea that the consequences of our ancestors' actions can still affect us today?
Yeah, like echoes through generations. And the Bible actually talks about this, that idea that, like, wrongdoing having this ripple effect. Have you ever felt that, by the way? Like these weird repeating patterns in your own life, in your family, maybe? It's something people have wondered about for ages.
Whoa, it's a lot to think about. But it's not only our ancestors, right? Like Moody says other people can curse us too.
He does, but he also says there's got to be a reason for it to stick.
Yeah.
He brings up Proverbs 26, which basically says that there needs to be like a cause, a connection for the curse to really land. It's not as simple as just, like someone saying, oh, I curse you, and then boom, that's it.
Okay, that makes me feel a little bit better, honestly. But this one really got me thinking, the idea that we can curse ourselves.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah, like Moody suggests that our own negative words, our choices, even the things we surround ourselves with, that they can all have this like power to curse us. It's like we become our own worst enemy.
It's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy in a way, isn't it? And that really gets to the heart of what this manual is exploring. The power of belief, the weight we put on our intentions. It's like if you truly believe something can harm you, even if it's coming from you, well, it just might.
That's deep. So how does he actually show these curses playing out, like in real life? He uses a story from the Bible, right? The story of Ahab and Jezebel.
Yeah, he uses them as kind of a case study, a way to illustrate how these ancient concepts, they're not just stories, they have this relevance to how we live and interact with each other even now. And the dynamics between those two, Ahab and Jezebel, it's fascinating stuff.
Especially Jezebel. I mean, she was the queen, but she really seemed to run the show. Moody even describes her as like manipulative, associated with idolatry. Definitely not someone to mess with.
No, not at all. And Ahab, on the other hand, he's portrayed as much more passive, easily influenced. It's a power dynamic that sadly you still see today. Think about relationships, any kind of relationship, really. You have one person who might be very dominant, controlling even, and the other person, they're more passive, they go along with it. It's like echoes of Ahab and Jezebel right there in the 21st century.
It's kind of scary, isn't it? Like this whole like cautionary tale thing. But Moody, he really drives home this point that their choices, like Ahab and Jezebel's, they don't just affect them.
But it's not just contained within their relationship, their lifetime. It ripples outward.
Exactly. And it impacts like their kids, even future generations. He actually says, a mother who is a Jezebel will raise Jezebel daughters and Ahab sons. Like, whoa, talk about intense.
That's vivid, right? But that's kind of the point, isn't it? It's like he's trying to make us really see how these patterns, these cycles of dysfunction, they can just keep repeating themselves, like almost like an inherited curse or something.
It's heavy stuff for sure. And you mentioned earlier, like Moody takes this beyond just like a strictly biblical interpretation, right?
Yeah, he does. I mean, he's not just talking about Ahab and Jezebel literally. He uses them as like archetypes,
Yeah.
They represent those negative traits like the manipulation, the passivity, the need for control, all that stuff. And those traits, those dynamics, they can pop up in any relationship, anytime, regardless of, your beliefs or anything.
So it's almost like he's challenging us to look at our own lives, our own relationships, and ask ourselves, are we embodying any of this? Are we caught in these Ahab and Jezebel dynamics without even realizing it?
Exactly. And it can be a little unnerving, honestly, to think about. But Moody, he doesn't leave us hanging. Like, he doesn't just point out the problem, he offers a way out.
Okay, so what's the secret? How do we break free from these patterns, these curses that seem to have this, like, power over us?
Well, he lays out this 6-step process for breaking curses, and it involves both spiritual and practical actions. Like, he talks a lot about forgiveness.
Which makes sense, right? Like letting go of all that anger and resentment.
Exactly. But it's not just about forgiving others. He talks about the importance of forgiving yourself. And, get this, even forgiving your ancestors, like acknowledging the hurt they might have caused, intentionally or not, and releasing that burden.
Wow, I never thought about it like that. It's almost like by holding on to those negative emotions, even if they're directed at someone long gone, it's like we're keeping ourselves tethered to that past, to that hurt.
It's like creating this energetic blockage, he says.
Mm.
And it's only by truly letting go through genuine forgiveness that we can really start to break free from those old patterns. He
That's
also
one.
talks about this idea of like breaking soul ties.
Okay, that one sounds a little, I don't know, a little out there. What does that even mean?
Yeah, it's definitely one of the more, let's say, esoteric sounding steps. But essentially, it's about recognizing and releasing those unhealthy attachments we might have to other people, even to places or things. Like sometimes we can get so intertwined with someone or something that it's like their energy, their baggage, it becomes our own. Breaking those ties is about reclaiming your own energetic space, your own power.
Okay, so forgiveness, breaking soul ties, it's a lot to process. But he also gets into some really practical stuff too, right?
He does. Like one step that really stood out to me and honestly kind of creeped me out a little was about removing cursed objects from your home.
Mm.
He even tells the story, this is wild, about Marie Moody, his wife, and this unsettling green flame. And, well, let's just say it involves getting rid of a certain antique.
Okay, now you've got to tell me more about this green flame. I mean, have you ever wondered if, like, objects could hold on to negative energy? Like, if our stuff could be cursed? It sounds crazy, but
I know, right? It's like something out of a horror movie. But I think that's part of what makes this manual so compelling. It blends these ancient beliefs, these ideas about curses and spiritual warfare with these really relatable modern experiences. Like we've all had that feeling, right? Where you walk
yeah,
into a room and it just feels heavy, or you get a bad vibe from a certain object and you're like, what is that?
totally. And Moody seems to be saying, like, no, seriously, that feeling you have, it might be legit. It's both fascinating and a little freaky. But okay, so we've got the forgiveness, the soul ties, the cursed antiques. What else?
Well, he also talks about cleansing your home, anointing it, even casting out demons. It's a lot. But there's
Wow.
this one thing that really ties it all together that he emphasizes throughout the entire process: prayer.
Makes sense. Like prayer is almost like the foundation for all of it, right? Like
Yeah.
the driving force behind each step.
Exactly. He even includes specific prayers for breaking curses in the manual, and the language, it's incredibly powerful.
It is. There's one, I remember reading it, and it's all about breaking free from those ancestral patterns, those negative influences that might be holding you back. It's like declaring your independence from the weight of the past.
Proud.
So powerful. So out of these 6 steps, is there one that Moody seems to emphasize more than others?
Oh, absolutely. If there's one thing that really stands out, it's that emphasis on forgiveness. Like he keeps coming back to it again and again. He
Mhm.
really believes that holding on to anger, resentment, even if it's towards people from your past, your ancestors, whoever, it creates this like energetic blockage. And it's only through genuine forgiveness of ourselves and everyone else involved that we can really break free.
Forgiveness as a form of liberation. It's a powerful way to look at it. So we've talked a lot about what Moody believes, but I know this whole idea of curses, well, it sparked a lot of debate. What are some other perspectives out there on this?
You're right. It's definitely not a one-size-fits-all kind of thing. I mean, there are a lot of different theological perspectives out there. Some people, they put more emphasis on personal responsibility, Like what we might see as a curse is really just the consequence of our own actions or the actions of like our family members, our
So
ancestors.
it's not really a curse, but just like cause and effect playing out through generations.
Exactly. And then you have others who believe that curses are very real, like these spiritual forces that are out there. But they also believe that the power of these curses can be broken through faith, through prayer, through spiritual practices.
So even within the context of like Christianity, looking at it through this biblical lens, there's still no easy answer.
Exactly. And that's what makes it so fascinating. It challenges us to really examine what we believe, how we see the world, and to grapple with these big questions that people have been asking for centuries. Like, what is fate? Do we have free will? And are there these unseen forces that are shaping our lives, whether we realize it or not?
Phew, this deep dive has given me a lot to chew on. How about you?
Oh, for sure. It's definitely one of those topics that stays with you. And, if anyone out there is intrigued by all of this, if you really want to dive deeper into Moody's perspective, I highly recommend checking out his book, Breaking Curses Deliverance Manual. It's quite a read.
It really is. That's what we love about these deep dives. Getting you curious, getting you thinking. And on that note, we'll catch you on our next adventure into the unknown. Until then, keep exploring, keep questioning, and remember, there's always more to discover.